A week ago, the Twins' postseason odds were nearly 75% in their favor. Heading into their ball game Wednesday, they've dropped to 1-4 or worse, depending on where you look. How can they turn it around with 5 games left? Find out after we get locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which brings you your team every day. I'm co-host David Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, a BBWA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since this year. Please follow me if you like on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown. So that would be at AnswerDaveBrown, not at AnswerDaveBrown. So no one's confused. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you spam him politely on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. Here's what's coming up in this podcast. The Twins are 2 games back of the Royals for the last wild card spot. The Tigers are also tied with the Royals, but let's not bring them into it right now. With 5 games left, so they're basically 2 games out this late in the season. 2 games out with 5 to go. So we will try to construct a scenario where the Twins somehow emerge with a postseason berth. We'll look at the near future of ball games, some pitching matchups, and see what the White Sox are doing, how they get into this. That's not great. And we'll also look at the rest of the week, and we'll also look back at pennant races of the Twins' past to see if there are any lessons to be learned about making up a late deficit in the final week of the regular season. Before we do all that, though, let's check in with Brandon to see if he has some information about who is bringing us this fine show.
Well, good afternoon, sports fans. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. By the way, you can catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast, which again sounds vaguely threatening right now, with Chris Atterbury and friends. It was Danny Gladden back on there last night. You can catch them on Sirius XM, no matter where you are, even in your car. Just download the SXM app, or if you have it in your car, just boot it up. But search the word Twins and you'll find it. Up next, it is Simeon Woods Richardson against Edward Cabrera. It's a 6:40 p.m. first pitch at the Taj Mahal, and you can check it out, a SiriusXM SXM app. And, you said they were 75% playoff odds a week ago. They're 25% now. My brain's saying that's 100%, Dave.
Well, I think your brain can do better than that, Brandon, really. It's not exactly how we add it up, although it does add to 100, doesn't it? Kind of neatly,
yeah.
or strangely enough. So, all right. So I have some other numbers here for you that your brain is probably not going to like. 8-14 in September, with a 74 and 104 run differential. So that's negative 30 runs, and they've only scored 74 runs so far. I mean, that kind of tells you what's going on right there. 27 and 34 in the second half, 40 and 58 versus teams that are over 500, or maybe it's 500 or better. Either way, it's not good. And this one I thought was kind of funny, 44 and 49 at night. So night games, not so good for the Twins, and that's too bad because most of the games are at night. Mm-hmm. And, that's just when they happen to play. So the situation is grim, but not completely hopeless. The Marlins, while they've won 1 game in the series already. They've got Edward Cabrera coming up in the next game, and then Valente Palazzo, and not Enrico Palazzo, in the finale. So I don't know if Valentine Bellissimo is any good or not, but the Twins ought to be able to win 2 of these games. I'm not saying that they're gonna, but they ought to be able to do that. And then in the last series, they've got the Orioles, who probably will have their fate settled by then. Mm-hmm. And no matter if they're like mentally into it or not, they're not going to be pitching their best pitchers. They're not going to be necessarily pushing their starters to go. It's going to be like a spring training game almost, where they got things they want to accomplish, boxes they want to check to be ready for the playoffs. Wouldn't it be nice for the Twins to be in a situation like that? But they're not. So they're not really going to be facing a fully competitive Orioles team. I'm trying to look at the bright side on all this. Am I just deluding myself? Probably. What do you think?
I am envisioning a nightmare scenario where the Twins don't take care of business against the Marlins, and then against the Orioles they sweep, and suddenly they miss out by a game. At that point it's like, well, yeah, the other two teams took their feet off the pedal. Tariq Skubal doesn't start in the final day of the year, and so he can be set up to start the first wild card game. That's the nightmare scenario. I got to ask you this, though. If they lose tonight, are you declaring it over?
Well, I kind of have to myself, where no one could hear, declared it over the past several times they've lost.
Yeah.
So, like declare like to the world if they lose tonight. No, I think they have to go 4-1.
Okay.
So that's according to my brain's math means they still have another game of wiggle room to work with. So no, but
Okay.
maybe I should. I don't know. I mean they definitely have to win this game, or else it's just I don't know. You know what? It also depends on what the other teams do. Can the Royals kind of get out of their own way here? They sort of played a game the other day or last night against Washington. I don't know if anybody watched it. It was kind of like the Twins game against the Red Sox, the one game in that series that they won, where they just kind of, or maybe it was even the Cleveland game. I don't know, but they can't get out of their own way, the Royals, and I'm not sure if that victory last night cured them or not. They've got they're going up against DJ Hers, and I don't know if he's going to spin the oldies or F stuff up old school or what kind of DJ he is, but he's pretty good for a rookie.
Yeah.
And then Patrick Corbin, kind of a human box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. He's got some of the worst games any starting pitcher has pitched all season. But on the other hand, in maybe half of his starts, he's pretty good. Maybe gives up 3 runs or less. I was trying to do some work on him earlier. So it's possible for the Royals to lose the next 2 games, and then they got to play Atlanta, which is going to be scratching and clawing for the final whatever to get to the playoffs. They're sort of on the outside looking in like the Twins right now too. But they've been playing better than the Twins, so you kind of hope that they would be in the mood to play better against the Royals. So it's still, one more loss. At some point, the Twins got to start winning some of these games, or they just don't have enough time to kind of wait for the other team to suck worse than they do. It's just not a good winning formula here at this point to expect someone to be worse than the Twins are right now.
Well, and to steal a cliche, it feels like the Twins are playing with their food while simultaneously they're starving. And so those two things don't really make any sense. Like, you're dying for wins, but you are popping. I mean, I tweeted this last night, and I think it is almost hits too close to home. But Ryan Weathers slams the rosin bag, and somehow Jose Miranda hits it into a pop-up, because it feels like every single Jose Miranda plate appearance, Ryan Jeffers plate appearance ends in a weak pop-up. And I almost thought that the Jeffers where he spiked his bat straight down, like if it had much more velocity, or if it was earlier in the season when the frost wasn't quite out yet, that might have been impaled like when you throw a sharp stick into the ground, or I thought he was close to doing that. That's how frustrated he was. And that's why esteemed guest of the show, Greg Masterson, makes a good point. You can see that these guys are frustrated. You can see that they haven't played well, but to get into their head and to say that they're not trying, or that they're sleepwalking, or that they're checked out, like, that's not really fair either. In your mind, the way they've played might seem checked out, but that's taking some liberty with people's mental state, capacity, preparation, that I don't know. Greg makes a good point. It's kind of gross. Like, don't talk about people like that.
Well, I was watching the Tigers game yesterday, and this subject kind of came up, not in relation to the Twins, but in relation to ball players pressing and giving effort and all that. It was Kirk Gibson who was talking about it. And Kirk Gibson's actually, he does have a lot of interesting things to say. It's hard with his disease to listen to him sometimes, because it makes you feel really sorry for someone in his position. And I'm sure pity is like the last thing, but he's still got something to offer. And he talked about this, and he's like, it's not even so much, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not so much effort or trying or whatever. But when a player isn't going well, when they're slumping, there is there's a lot of they can't tell you why. They don't know why they're not hitting the ball well, or what exactly is wrong. They can like dissect what a pitcher is doing and maybe some things with their own swing, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But it's not a matter of effort. But it's also a situation where they don't know exactly why they're not putting the best possible swing on the ball. It isn't so much that they don't care, or even if they care too much. It's just that when you are in a slump, there is a thing that happens with your brain where it does not communicate the right way to swing a bat. And it's something that happens to all players, no matter how good they are. And it is a matter of getting beyond that. So I think we kind of confuse and conflate, effort with, a lack of effort with a lack of understanding of how to get out of your slump. They're two different things. And these guys are mostly professionals. Most of them are trying most of the time. That isn't the issue, but it's still a real issue. The mental part of the game is still real, and it's still difficult to translate. To tell yourself, well, this is what I got to do to hit the ball right, and then keep consistent with that. It's one of the hardest things to do in any job anywhere. So it's that doesn't necessarily make me feel any better about the Twins situation, but I thought I understood a little bit better where players are coming from. It's not easy. Like, you can't just go up to the plate and will yourself base hits. That's not how it works.
Well, and I think what's important before we go to break here is just because you can't, don't, or won't articulate the why doesn't mean you're not searching for the why. The why you're struggling. Sure. And so, you can make things up to fill column inches and digital media page inches, but searching for the why isn't the same as telling people the why, knowing the why, and saying it out loud. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
For sure. Well, let's take that break and try and get into more of the why and how.
Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Hopefully, Twins fans will be able to explore a rival city and use Booking.com, but we still have time to find out if that's going to be the case. You can also book vacations with Booking.com, so you don't really have to make the postseason to make Booking.com your destination for hotels, beds and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. Again, Booking.com is where you will find your perfect stay, even if you're in your rival's city during the postseason. Are you going to Cleveland if the Twins can get past the wild card round or even get to the wild card round? That might be the way to go. If you're going to Baltimore, I don't know how likely that is, but try some of those crab cakes out there. Again, Booking.com can set you up. And of course, Oriole Park at Camden Yards, must see for all baseball fans. So Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you, no matter where you're looking. And Booking.com can help you book a stay that's close to your home team stadium or rival stadium. So if you're a Twins fan coming in from out of town for the next couple games, hurry on over to Booking.com and check it out. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city. Yes, again, even your baseball rivals. That's Booking.com, Booking.yeah. And we love our friends over at FanDuel. Sorry, Dave. I didn't articulate to you that we had one more spot here, but NFL fans.
I'll stand down.
Hey, stand down. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's right, FanDuel has all of that set up for you. You'll get started with a $200 allowance in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, don't even have to win. So if you want to bet on Andy Dalton and the Panthers, they might actually win, but certainly better chance than when they had Bryce Young. You can do that. It's, again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book.
So one more thing before I get into transition into the kind of the next thing about pennant races of the past. I was thinking about this. You know who swang? You know who swung the bat really well yesterday? Royce Lewis. He hit the ball over 100 miles an hour 3 times,
Yeah.
and sometimes it just doesn't go your way when you're hitting it into somewhere. But I found myself thinking, well, that would be great if this were like late August instead of late September.
Yeah.
How encouraging it would be. Oh, Royce Lewis is coming around. It's just I do think somebody else mentioned this too, that there's some kind of injury that's going on, and that has to affect him. You see how he's running or not running. He's not
Yeah.
really going 100%
Yeah.
base to base or whatever. And there's something in his lower half that's no good. I don't know if it is the injuries from before or related to them or a new thing entirely, but there is something at play there. And that is, of course, another thing that you can't get into their heads about these
Right.
players.
Nor
Uh,
should you. Nor should you try.
no, no. At least when it comes to criticizing, maybe if you're trying to figure out why, it's one
That
thing. But to go out there and say, "Oh, this person stinks," or they're not giving an effort, or whatever, when you're not walking in their shoes or inside their skull, you're mostly woefully ignorant of things.
well,
So,
and
but I'm encouraged by Royce Lewis hitting the ball hard, even though there's 5 games left.
he strikes me as the kind of player, the kind of leader that would do the Kirby Puckett, hop on my back, guys. We're gonna win tonight, and
Yeah.
then like that's why he gets hurt because that's just how things have gone this season. Is oh great, everybody hopped on his back like that old Kevin Garnett commercial where he's got the whole world in his hands and they just keep stacking people on top like it's the trash can on The Simpsons when Homer digs a sandwich out of there. Like
Right.
that's a lot of references in one sentence. I apologize. I just feel like, yeah, each player feels like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders right now. And it's not that they're not trying. It's not that they're not frustrated. Again, that Jeffers bat spike is, I think, emblematic of everything the Twins are feeling as a team right now. And if you don't think that they care, you're probably an idiot. But yeah, I hope Royce's swings were indicative of something. And if nothing else, maybe they can get to 3 runs. Because again, as we've seen, they're one of the best teams in baseball when they score 3 runs or more.
So, excuse me. One thing I was thinking about in relation to this is: are there any historical references or allegories or memories that we can bring up of pennant races past, seasons where maybe going into the last week or almost of the season, it was kind of it's not a perfect analogy, but 2009 comes to mind. 2006 comes to mind too, with teams that were it kind of before that last step of the season, it sort of started to look bad, and then they were able to turn it around. Do you think that there's any relevance there? I mean, I know it's what a Joe Mauer team or a Justin Morneau team or AJ Przinsky team did. Well, he was gone by then, but so
Yeah.
many years ago isn't relevant. But just to look for some hope somewhere that they can kind of stop the bleeding and then get real healthy here in the next 7 hours.
Well, in the comparison of 2006 is more along the lines of like play when the situation is tight. The Twins never trailed in the. Oh no, they did. Sorry, they were down a game with 5 to go. I was reading
Right.
that backwards. And then they lost back to back against Chicago, Freddie Garcia and John Garland, and then won on the last day of the season to get to 96 wins. Certainly, they're not going to get anywhere close to that. But yeah, that does give some added perspective of like they were down 1 game for the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7. They win, lose, take 2 or 3, no, 3 or 4 from KC and make up very little ground. Tied, and then have to win on the last day after losing to John Garland, Matt Garza taking the loss. Yeah, I mean, I wish I felt more confident, but again, that team was in a lot of ways better than this year's team in terms of results and meeting expectations. Yeah, I think it's an interesting tie-in, and it's an interesting way to put it because it's still certainly possible, and they even lost big games down the stretch there and still made it happen.
The one thing, I wouldn't say confidence, but I believe it's possible for maybe not Detroit, but for Kansas City to stumble here in the
Yeah.
next few days and lose enough games to give the Twins a chance. I'm just not sure if the Twins have it in them at this point. It just seems like it's been a war of attrition, and they've had, they haven't had all of their players for most of the season at one time or another, and it just seems like they're tired out. I look at like just the last two performances, Ober and Lopez, who've been two of their best players,
Yeah.
and Ober's start wasn't so much of a disaster as Lopez's was, but just at some point, if you against these professionals on the other side, even if they're mediocre teams, if you're missing just a little bit with your pitches or you just have a little bit of bad luck, it can just completely balloon on you in a second, even with your best players. And if those are the best guys, the guys who are going great for the Twins, how are they supposed to be led out of this abyss by players who are 75%, 50% of what they should be? Like I said, I like to be positive, or at least I try and go out of my way to not look at the negative side. But
Yeah.
I just don't know if we championed their depth all season. I just don't know if their depth is there anymore. I don't think they're as good as we hope they would be, nor are they as healthy either physically or mentally. And I just think I don't think they've given up, but
Right.
I don't know if they're going to be in that, going back to that Kirk Gibson story, able to kind of find their way mentally out of this and with the time that's left.
Yeah, it's kind of like is merely a flesh wound. You just kind of deluding yourself into thinking things will turn around with 5 games left. And I watched the Tigers win the game over the Rays on Tuesday, and it's just amazing. I mean, you got guys like Zach McKinstry making plays, and you've got guys like Trey Sweeney, that diving catch he made the other night to keep a game against the Orioles going when they could have been walked off, and then they end up scoring runs in the other half of the inning and winning. They're doing it with guys that I wouldn't take over Twins players over a long haul, but they're there, they're performing, and they're doing what they need to do results wise. And sometimes it just comes down to when professionals are that good, like the gap between a professional superstar and a professional guy who's, maybe a rookie or someone coming up, the gap isn't really that high. And you can easily achieve over small sample sizes as a team much, much better. And the Tigers they've cashed in their opportunities. They have done what was necessary. Doesn't mean they wanted it more. It just means that in that moment they performed, and cheers to them. You got to give them their credit. And at the end of the day, this could be an insanely disappointing finish to the season. It could be an incredible, breathtaking come from behind effort. But the Twins, as far as talent goes, they're not lacking compared to these other teams. It's just that they're not where they need to be execution wise.
I wouldn't take Trevor Larnach or I'm sorry, I would take Trevor Larnach or Matt Wallner over Wenzel Perez, but
Yep.
his at bat
He hit third yesterday. He hit third.
Right. They gave him a lot of responsibility,
Yep.
and he's a rookie, and I'm I don't know, pleasantly surprised at how well he's played. But the key at bat in that game was his 2-run double, and it was double digits pitches seen and lots of foul balls and taking close pitches and getting into a full count. And it was masterful. It was not, like I said, not necessarily a player that I would trade. I would rather have the Twins guys, and of course, Wallner in a pinch hitting appearance appeared to hurt himself, or maybe he was hurt before too.
Right, but that's how it goes.
Good. So that wasn't good. But the kid, the rookie, made a play and he made it happen, and that's kind of what the Twins need. Brooks Lee to do that, or I was hoping maybe Edouard Julien would do it. He actually had a pretty good fly ball yesterday that was caught pretty easily, but it was one of his better at bats in a while. So, and actually it was one of his first at bats in a while. He hadn't been playing. So, but that's what the Twins need. They need to keep it close and have a rookie, one of these talented players have their own Wenzel Perez come through with a big hit, and they still, not all these guys are injured, and not all of them are slumping.
Yeah.
I think there's still time, brother, but I'm kind of losing hope at this point. I don't know. So,
Well, that's Hulk Hogan trying to speak the good news. Let me tell you, brother.
that's right. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and go to commercial.
All right. Well, if you want to get out to Target Field here in the next couple days, and or even the series after that, I guess Baltimore's going to be in town too, and either get excited for a stretch run here of 5 games or pay your respects. Whatever you decide to do, Game Time is the app for you, whether you're going to a sports game, a comedy show. Like I went on Friday, theater tickets, music, you name it, they have it. You download the Game Time app, search and find the seat where you're going to sit. They'll give you a panoramic view. My favorite feature, besides the panoramic view, is the all-in pricing. You got to toggle it. It isn't automatically on, but if you toggle it on, it will tell you exactly what you will pay at the end of the transaction. You don't have any of these hidden fees at the back end like the other guys. And you can get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So if you find the ticket elsewhere cheaper, they'll take care of you. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the game. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, Twins tickets, you name it, with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Touched on it a little bit. The last segment is, I couldn't really come up with a good title, so I came up with Staring Into the Void. Just kind of that 1,000-yard, oh my God, is the season over yet kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
we've had a lot of those on the broadcast where they've like panned the dugout, and you've seen those stairs.
Right. It's
it's
a longer season for them than it is even for fans. But
yeah, exactly.
But I touched on it a little bit in the previous segment. Royce Lewis hitting the ball hard, and that was good to see. That's encouraging. I've really been encouraged with the performances for the most part lately of Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa and Zebby Matthews. Matthews probably one of the more controversial starts of the year. Should they've kept with him or taken him out? But regardless, he 87 pitches in a tough ballpark against a competitive team. David Festa, you can really tell the improvements that he's made. He's got great movement. He's got great confidence in himself. And Simeon Woods Richardson, he hit a lull there for a while, but his previous start was one of his best of the second half. Still, it would be nice for these guys to be able to get into the 6th or 7th inning, but we say that about like most pitchers in the league. And so maybe they'll be, kind of how Bailey Ober has developed and Joe Ryan has developed. Maybe those 3 starting pitchers will be in a position where, Joe Ryan was maybe a couple of years ago, and Bailey Ober started to be at the beginning of last year. I found myself looking at, the starting rotation for next season, even if they don't bring anybody in, and I don't really expect them to as far as a major free agent. I'm pretty encouraged by that. And I would take, a healthy Joe Ryan and these rookies and Lopez and Ober over most other rotations in the American League.
Yeah, I'm eager to see what David Festa looks like moving forward. By the way, did you see who got him in the bidding in our fantasy league?
Yeah, will you stop stealing players that I put up for auction?
Yeah, that's what happens when you get $20 in extra budget and a very, very, very bad team. So sorry about it, but yeah, no. What's that?
Did someone drop $20 in the street and you picked it up and used it on David Festa?
$20. Yeah. So yeah, I'm eager to see what Festa looks like as he continues to mature. The second act for all 3 of these guys is exciting. And then, yeah, like you said, Ober, Pablo, and Joe Ryan, assuming he comes back. I know he expected to make his next start, but didn't. So anyway,
he'll still be right if his next starts in April. So
yeah, Exactly. But they're in a good place pitching wise, even if they take the cheap route again, which people won't want to hear, but is the case anyway.
Maybe they'll make some foolish relief pitcher signings, or perhaps some trades for some. Maybe that'll be better. Justin Topa, except with 2 good knees. Although I guess he hurt it. He hurt his knee in spring training, so that's not fair either. But
Great trade, Falvey.
yeah. So hey, Paul
Ollie?
Sullivan.
Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen today, but your second listen should be Sully on the Locked On MLB podcast. His name is Paul Sullivan, but again, we call him Sully because he's our buddy, and he's here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs as we trudge through the dog days of summer. So prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, which is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, because it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day.
See you tomorrow night. No, I jumped the gun a little bit. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully the Twins will put a little Metrodome magic into their, even though that building is not alive anymore, into their the rest of the series with the Marlins and win a couple games. And then conversely, the Royals will do their thing and keep losing. And then we'll have at least some false optimism here going into the last weekend of the season. And then we'll go from there. I think that's a good plan, right, Brandon?
Deal. It sounds good.
All right. But until then, for Brandon Warren and the rest of the Locked On Twins crew, there's nobody else really.
Yeah.
We're going to see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night.
Hey, that's the intro, not the exit.
Whoa. We're going to see you right now.
We'll see you a little bit later.
No, we're seeing you now.